The candlelight flickered across the white tablecloth at Giovanni's, the nicest Italian restaurant in Pittsburgh. My 18th birthday dinner was supposed to be perfect. My whole family was there, smiling and laughing, when Grandpa Henry suddenly stood up with his wine glass raised. His voice boomed across our private dining room. "Christal, sweetheart, I think it's time you shared with everyone here how you've managed your $5 million trust fund over these past 18 years. The room went dead silent. I felt my stomach drop. I looked around the table, confused, and whispered the words that would change everything. I never got one. Grandpa's face went pale. His lawyer, a tall man I'd never met before, stepped forward from the corner of the room and placed thick manila folders on the table. My parents, David and Susan, turned white as ghosts and gripped the edge of the table like they might fall over. That moment, that single horrible moment, shattered every memory I had of my childhood. Everything I thought I knew about my family, about my life, about who I was, crumbled into dust right there between the breadsticks and the untouched pasta. My hands started shaking. I couldn't breathe. The lawyer opened the first folder, and I saw numbers, so many numbers, printed on official-looking bank statements. $5 million. My name at the top. Dates going back 18 years. Transaction after transaction showing money leaving the account. Money I never knew existed. Money that was supposed to be mine. Money my parents told me we never had, while I worked myself to exhaustion just to afford community college textbooks. I looked at my mother's face and saw something I'd never seen before. Guilt. Pure, undeniable guilt. My father wouldn't even meet my eyes, and I knew right then that my entire childhood had been a lie. Growing up in our small 2-bedroom apartment on the east side of Pittsburgh, I learned early that money was tight. At least, that's what my parents always told me. Mom and Dad sat Tyler and me down every few months to remind us that we needed to be grateful for what we had and never ask for things we didn't need. Our apartment had thin walls and creaky floors. The carpet was stained from the previous tenants. The bathroom sink dripped constantly, a sound that became the soundtrack of my childhood. I wore clothes from Goodwill and the Salvation Army. Mom would take me shopping there twice a year, once before school started and once in January when I'd outgrown my winter coat. I got good at finding the nicest things on the racks, the jeans that didn't have visible wear marks, the sweaters that weren't pilled. I learned to be grateful. I learned not to complain. When other girls at school wore Abercrombie and American Eagle, I wore whatever fit and cost less than $5. My 15th birthday came and went without a party. Mom said we couldn't afford it. Instead, we had cake at home, just the 4 of us. The cake was from the grocery store clearance section, a little smashed on one side, but it tasted fine. Tyler gave me a card head made himself. I told everyone I didn't mind. I told myself I didn't mind. When I turned 16, I asked about getting my driver's license. Dad said no immediately. He said insurance for a teenage driver was too expensive. He said we couldn't afford another car anyway. I watched my classmates get their licenses, post pictures with their first cars, even beat up old Honda Civics and Toyota Corollas. I rode the bus. I walked. I got rides from friends when I could. I told myself it was fine. I told myself it built character. I started working at 14. First at a sandwich shop near our apartment, making $7.25 an hour. I worked after school and on weekends, coming home smelling like pickles and mayonnaise. Every paycheck went into a savings account at the local credit union. I was saving for college. Dad helped me open the account. He said he was proud of me for being responsible. He said I was learning the value of hard work. By 16, I was working 2 jobs, the sandwich shop during the week and a grocery store on weekends. I worked the register, bagged groceries, helped stock shelves. My back ached. My feet hurt. I came home exhausted and still had homework to finish. My grades slipped a little bit junior year. Mom said I needed to work harder, manage my time better. I tried. I really tried. Dinner was often pasta with jarred sauce, or rice and beans, or chicken thighs that were on sale. Mom clipped coupons religiously. We bought generic brands. We never went out to eat except maybe twice a year for something special. I remember thinking other families must have more money than us. I remember feeling embarrassed when friends talked about their family vacations to Disney World or the beach. We never went anywhere. Tyler, my younger brother, lived the same way. He wore my hand-me-downs when they fit, or clothes from the same thrift stores. He never complained either. He was a good kid. Quiet. Always drawing in his sketchbooks. He wanted art supplies for his birthday one year. Nice pencils and good paper. Mom said maybe next year. He got a pack of number 2 pencils and a spiral notebook from the dollar store. Our parents drove old cars. Dad had a 1998 Buick with rust around the wheel wells and a passenger door that stuck. Mom drove a 2001 Ford Taurus with a crack across the windshield and seats that were ripped in places. They said car payments were a waste of money. They said you should drive a car until it dies. I believed them. I believed everything they told me. When senior year came around, I got accepted to Penn State. Full ride academically? No, but I got some scholarships, not enough. I needed help with the rest. I sat down with my parents in our tiny living room, my acceptance letter in hand, and asked if they could help at all. Maybe just a little bit for housing. Maybe a small loan I could pay back. Dad's face got hard. He said they'd already sacrificed so much raising us. He said I was being selfish. He said community college was a perfectly good option, and if I was smart, I'd take it. Mom cried a little bit and said she wished things were different, but they just didn't have the money. She hugged me and told me she was sorry. I cried too. I felt guilty for even asking. I felt like a burden, so I enrolled at the Community College of Allegheny County. I could live at home. I could keep working. I could take classes part-time and still afford it with my savings and a small student loan. I told myself it was fine. I told myself lots of people start at community college. I told my friends from high school that I chose it because I wanted to save money and wasn't sure what I wanted to study yet. I lied to everyone, including myself. I ate ramen noodles 4 or 5 nights a week because they were cheap and easy. 24 cents a packet. I could eat for less than $2 a day if I was careful. I bought day-old bread from the grocery store where I worked. I stretched every dollar. I calculated every purchase. I lived like we were poor because my parents told me we were poor. Now, sitting at this birthday dinner at Giovanni's, the nicest restaurant I'd ever been inside, I stared at those bank statements and felt something crack inside my chest. Grandpa Henry's voice was shaking when he spoke again. Christal, sweetheart, I established this trust fund the day you were born. $5 million. Your parents were the trustees. They were supposed to use it for your education, your health, your welfare. You were supposed to have everything you needed. The lawyer, who introduced himself as Bernard Walsh, pulled out more papers. His voice was calm, but I could hear anger underneath. The trust started with $5 million 18 years ago. Through conservative investments, it should have grown to approximately $7 million by now. Instead, the current balance is $1,200,000. I couldn't process the numbers. They were too big, too impossible. Bernard continued. Your parents had legal access to the funds as trustees. They were required to use the money solely for your benefit. Instead, they used it for themselves. He pulled out highlighted statements. Harrah's a withdrawal of $68,000 for a lake house purchased in their names. Harrah's $42,000 charged at luxury hotels in Europe. Harrah's $36,000 at a Mercedes dealership. Harrah's $28,000 at country clubs. The list goes on. For 18 years. I looked at my mother. She was sobbing into her napkin. I looked at my father. His jaw was clenched. He was staring at the table. I looked at Tyler. He looked as shocked as I felt. Grandpa Henry's eyes were filled with tears. He looked older than I'd ever seen him, sitting there in his navy suit, his hands trembling. You stole from me, I whispered. My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from somewhere far away. You made me work myself to death. You made me feel guilty for wanting to go to college. You ate expensive dinners while I ate ramen. You bought a lake house while I shopped at Goodwill. You stole my whole life. The words hung in the air. My mother's sobs got louder. My father finally looked up at me, and what I saw in his face wasn't remorse. It was defensiveness. Anger, even. We raised you, he said, his voice tight. We gave you a roof over your head. We fed you, we clothed you. Do you have any idea how expensive it is to raise children? I felt like heads slapped me. Grandpa Henry stood up so fast his chair fell backward. David, you will not speak to her that way. You stole from your own daughter. You violated every legal and moral obligation you had. You're going to face the consequences. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a family argument. This was the beginning of something much bigger. Something that would tear everything apart. But in that moment, I didn't care. I wanted the truth. I wanted justice. I wanted my life back. The restaurant manager appeared, clearly uncomfortable with the volume of our voices. Other diners were staring. A woman at a nearby table had her phone out, maybe recording. I didn't care anymore. Let them watch. Let them see what my parents really were. We need to leave, Bernard said quietly but firmly. This conversation should continue somewhere private. I stood up. My legs wobbling. I'm not going anywhere with them. I pointed at my parents. Mom reached for my arm. I jerked away. Don't touch me. Christal, please, let us explain. Mom begged. Her makeup was smeared from crying. Her voice was high and desperate. We were going to tell you. We were just waiting for the right time. The right time? I laughed, but it came out bitter and sharp. 18 years wasn't enough time? Watching me work myself sick wasn't the right time? Letting me give up my dream school wasn't the right time? When exactly was the right time going to be? Dad stood up too, his face red. You need to calm down. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene. My voice got louder. I couldn't control it. 18 years of exhaustion, stress, and sacrifice were pouring out of me all at once. You stole millions of dollars from your own daughter, and you're worried about a scene. Tyler spoke for the first time, his voice small. Is this real? Did you really do this? Mom turned to him, still crying. Tyler, honey, it's complicated. Adults make mistakes sometimes. Mistakes. Grandpa Henry's voice cracked like thunder. Theft isn't a mistake, Susan. Fraud isn't a mistake. What you two have done is criminal. That word hung in the air. Criminal. My parents were criminals. I'd spent my whole life trusting them, believing them, trying to make them proud, and they were criminals who stole from me. Bernard stepped forward again, his briefcase in hand. Christal, you need to know something else. He pulled out another folder. Your parents didn't just spend your money. 6 months ago, they attempted to dissolve the entire trust fund. The room started spinning. What? They forged your signature on legal documents claiming you wanted to gift them the remaining balance as thanks for their years of parenting. The forgery was sophisticated. Professional even. They must have paid someone to create a convincing version of your signature. It never signed anything related to a trust fund. I didn't even know it existed until 10 minutes ago. Bernard continued. I only caught it because I personally know your signature from birthday cards you've sent to your grandfather over the years. I compared them. They didn't match. I stopped the transaction and launched a full investigation. That's how I uncovered everything. My parents tried to take everything. Not just most of it. Everything. They wanted to leave me with nothing. I felt bile rise in my throat. I thought I might throw up right there on the white tablecloth. You were going to take it all, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. You weren't satisfied with the millions you already stole. You wanted every single penny. You wanted to leave me with nothing. Mom shook her head frantically. No, that's not how it was. We were in a difficult financial situation. We needed help. We thought if we could just access the rest, we could pay you back later. Pay me back with what? I screamed. People at other tables jumped. You don't have anything. You spent it all. You gambled with my future and you lost. Dad's face changed then. The defensiveness shifted to something uglier. Watch your tone. I'm still your father. You're not my father, I said coldly. You're a thief who happens to share my DNA. Grandpa Henry moved between us. That's enough, David. Bernard, Christal is coming home with me tonight. Tyler, you're welcome too if you want. Tyler looked torn. He glanced at our parents, then at me, then at Grandpa. I don't know. This is all so crazy. It's okay, I told him, my voice gentler. You don't have to decide right now. But I can't stay in that apartment another night. I can't even look at them. Mom grabbed my hand before I could pull away. Please, Christal, please don't do this. We're family. Family forgives each other. We made mistakes, yes, but we can fix this. We can work through this together. I looked down at her hand on mine. The same hand that had stroked my hair when I was sick. The same hand that had helped me with homework. The same hand that had hugged me goodbye on my first day of high school. The same hand that had signed papers to steal everything I had. I pulled away. There's nothing to work through. You're thieves. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows it. Bernard, Grandpa Henry and I left the restaurant together. Behind us, I could hear my mother wailing and my father cursing. Tyler stayed with them. I didn't blame him. He was only 15. This was too much for anyone, but especially for a kid who still had to live with them. In Grandpa's car, a newer model Lincoln I'd never seen before, the silence was heavy. I stared out the window at the Pittsburgh streets passing by. Streets I'd walked 1,000 times. Everything looked different now. Like the whole world had shifted slightly off its axis. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, Grandpa Henry said, his voice thick with emotion. I should have checked on things sooner. I should have asked more questions. I trusted your father completely. Hez my son. I never imagined He'd do something like this. It's not your fault, I said, though my voice sounded hollow. You trusted him because that's what you're supposed to do. Hez the one who betrayed everyone. Bernard drove his own car behind us. When we got to Grandpa's house, a beautiful colonial in a nice suburb I'd visited many times for holidays, we went inside and sat in his living room. The room smelled like old books and the lemon furniture polish Grandpa used. It smelled safe. It smelled honest. Bernard opened his briefcase and pulled out more documents. Christal, I need to explain your legal options. What your parents did constitutes several crimes: embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, and forgery. You can press criminal charges. You can also file civil lawsuits to recover the stolen funds plus damages and attorney fees. Criminal charges. My parents could go to prison. The thought made me feel sick and satisfied at the same time. What happens if I do that? If the district attorney pursues the case and wins, your parents could face significant prison time. Several years. Potentially. In a civil case, you'd sue for the return of all stolen funds. Given that they've spent most of it, the court would likely order them to make payments over time. You could put liens on their property, garnish their wages, seize assets. Assets they bought with my money, the lake house, the cars, everything. I need to think about it, I said. Of course, but Christal, you should know something else. Bernard's expression grew even more serious, which I didn't think was possible. During my investigation, I discovered that your grandfather also established a trust fund for Tyler. $1 million to be revealed to him on his 18th birthday. My stomach dropped again. No. Yes, your parents have been trustees of that fund too. They've already withdrawn approximately $400,000 from it. At the rate they're spending, Tyler will have nothing left by the time he turns 18. Tyler, my baby brother who loved to draw, who never asked for anything, who was probably sitting in that apartment right now trying to process what just happened. They'd stolen from him too. They were going to rob him of his future just like they robbed me of mine. That's when I knew what I had to do. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about protecting Tyler. This was about stopping them before they destroyed another life. I want to press charges, I said, my voice steady now. All of them. Criminal and civil. I want everything. Grandpa Henry closed his eyes for a moment, pained. Bernard nodded. I'll make the necessary calls first thing tomorrow morning. In the meantime, I need you to not have any contact with your parents. Don't answer their calls. Don't respond to texts. Don't let them try to convince you to change your mind. Can you do that? Yes, I'd never been more certain of anything in my life. That night, I lay in the guest bedroom at Grandpa's house, the same room I'd stayed in during Christmas visits and summer vacations. The bed was comfortable, the sheets were clean and soft. The room was quiet, but I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw images from my childhood. Mom packing my thrift store lunches. Dad driving me to work in his beat-up car. Family dinners around our small kitchen table. Birthday cakes from the clearance section. All of it was a lie. All of it was a performance. They were actors playing the role of struggling parents while they secretly lived like millionaires on my money. The betrayal was so deep, so complete, that I couldn't find the bottom of it. Every memory was tainted. Every moment of love I thought we shared was now covered in questions. Did they ever really love me? Or was I just a bank account they pretended to care about? I cried into the pillow, trying to stay quiet so Grandpa wouldn't hear. I cried for the childhood I thought I had. I cried for the parents I thought I knew. I cried for the trust that was shattered. And I cried because I knew deep down that nothing would ever be the same again. Morning came too fast. I woke up to the smell of coffee and bacon. When I went downstairs, Grandpa Henry was in the kitchen making breakfast. He looked like he hadn't slept either. His eyes were red-rimmed and his movements were slow, tired. "How are you feeling?" he asked, though it was clearly a question with no good answer. "Empty," I said honestly, like someone scooped out my insides. He nodded and slid a plate of eggs and bacon in front of me. Real bacon. Thick cut and perfectly crispy. I thought about all the times I'd eaten plain oatmeal for breakfast because it was cheap. The anger flared up again, hot and bitter. Bernard arrived at 9 o'clock sharp. He had more documents, more evidence, more devastating truths to share. We sat at Grandpa's dining room table, and he laid it all out like a prosecutor building a case. "I've contacted Detective Lisa Brennan from the Financial Crimes Unit," Bernard said. "She's very interested in this case. She'll want to interview you this week." "Okay. I also need to show you something else." He pulled out credit reports. My name was at the top. "Your parents opened credit cards in your name when you turned 16. Did you know about this?" I shook my head. I'd never had a credit card. I'd never even applied for one. "They've maxed out 3 cards totaling $83,000 in debt. They've been making minimum payments from your trust fund, but the interest keeps accumulating. Your credit score is 487? I didn't know much about credit scores, but I knew that was bad. Really bad. Can they do that? Can they just open cards in my name? Not legally, no. It's identity theft, but it happens more often than you'd think, especially with parents and children. They have access to your social security number, your birth certificate, all the information needed to apply for credit. Many young people don't discover the fraud until they try to rent an apartment or buy a car and find out their credit is destroyed. My credit was destroyed before I even knew I had credit. Another thing they took from me, another door they closed before I even knew it existed." Grandpa Henry looked ill. His face was gray, his hands shaking slightly. "I can't believe my own son did this. I raised him better than this. His mother and I, we taught him right from wrong. We taught him integrity and honesty. Where did we go wrong?" "You didn't go wrong," I said firmly. "He made his choices. That's on him, not you." But Grandpa looked unconvinced. I could see the guilt eating at him, the same way my parents' lies had been eating at me for 18 years. We were both victims of David and Susan's greed. My phone had been buzzing all morning. Texts from my parents. Voicemails I didn't listen to. I blocked their numbers like Bernard suggested. Then Tyler called. I answered that one. "Christal." His voice was small and scared. "Can we talk?" "Of course. Are you okay? Can I come over to Grandpa's? I don't want to talk about this on the phone. And I can't. I can't be here right now. They're arguing about what to do. Mom won't stop crying. Dad keeps yelling about lawyers and ungrateful children. I just need to get out. Come over. I'll text you the address." Tyler arrived 20 minutes later on his bike. A rusty 10-speed head gotten at a yard sale 3 years ago. When I opened the door, he looked smaller than his 15 years. His eyes were red, his hair was messy. He was wearing one of my old hoodies that was too big on him. We sat in Grandpa's living room. Grandpa gave us space, retreating to his study to make phone calls. Tyler twisted his hands together, not looking at me. I didn't know, he said finally. I swear I didn't know about any of it. The trust fund, the money they took. None of it. I know. I believe you. Last night after you left, I couldn't sleep. I heard them talking in their bedroom. The walls are thin, you know? I heard everything. He looked up at me then. And his eyes were full of pain. They were planning to lie more. Dad wanted to file for bankruptcy to avoid paying you back. Mom said they should claim Grandpa gave them verbal permission to use the money. They weren't sorry. They were just scared of getting caught. The words felt like knives. Even after everything, some small part of me had hoped they felt genuine remorse. That hope died right there. There's more. Tyler continued, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. I heard them talking about my trust fund. I didn't even know I had one until they mentioned it. Dad said they'd already spent $400,000 from it. He said by the time I turn 18, it'll probably be gone, but that was the plan anyway. They were going to take mine too, just like they took yours. I reached over and hugged him. He started crying, really crying, the kind of broken sobs that shake your whole body. I cried too. We sat there on Grandpa's couch, two kids who'd been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect us, holding on to each other because we were all we had left. When we finally pulled apart, Tyler wiped his face on his sleeve. What are you going to do? I'm pressing charges, criminal and civil. I'm getting back everything I can, and I'm making sure they can't hurt anyone else. He nodded slowly. Good. That's good. They deserve it. What about you? Where are you going to live? You're still 15. You can't just leave. I don't know. Maybe I can stay with Grandpa too? I can't go back there. I can't look at them. Grandpa Henry emerged from his study at that moment and had clearly been listening. Tyler, you can absolutely stay here. This house has plenty of room. You're both welcome for as long as you need. Relief flooded Tyler's face. Really, really. You're my grandson. You belong here. Both of you do. That afternoon, Tyler and I went back to our parents' apartment to pack our things. Grandpa drove us. Bernard came too, just in case. When we walked in, Mom was on the couch, still in her pajamas. Dad was at the kitchen table with papers spread everywhere, probably trying to figure out how to hide more money or cover more tracks. They both stood when we entered. Mom rushed toward Tyler. Honey, thank God, I was so worried. Where have you been? Don't, Tyler said, stepping back. Just don't. Dad's eyes narrowed. So you're both turning against us? Your own parents. You're not victims here, I said coldly. Don't even try to make this about you. I went to my room, such as it was. A small space barely big enough for a twin bed and a dresser. The walls were thin. I could hear everything that happened in the apartment. That's how I knew Dad came home late some nights. That's how I knew they argued about money sometimes. But I never knew the truth. I never knew they were arguing about how to spend my money. Not about how to survive without it. I packed my clothes, my books, my laptop, my few personal items. Everything I owned fit into 2 duffel bags and a backpack. 18 years of life in 3 bags. It felt pathetic and freeing at the same time. Tyler was packing in his room. I could hear Mom in there trying to talk to him, trying to explain, trying to manipulate him into staying. But Tyler wasn't listening. Good for him. When we were done, we loaded everything into Grandpa's car. Mom followed us out, still pleading. Please don't do this, please. We're a family. Families work through problems together. We can get counseling. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix. I said, you broke something that can't be repaired. Dad appeared in the doorway. If you go through with this, if you press charges, you'll regret it. You'll destroy this family. That guilt will eat at you for the rest of your life. I looked him straight in the eyes. The only people who destroyed this family are standing in that doorway, and the only guilt I feel is that I didn't see through you sooner. We drove away. I watched our apartment building disappear in the side mirror. I'd lived there my whole life. Every memory I had was tied to that place. But I felt nothing. No nostalgia. No sadness. Just a cold, empty relief that I'd never have to go back. That evening, Bernard received a call from Detective Brennan. She wanted to meet with me the next day. Shed reviewed the preliminary evidence Bernard sent over, and she was ready to move forward with a criminal investigation. Things were happening fast now. Too fast, maybe. But there was no going back. The wheels were in motion. Later that night, Tyler knocked on my door. I was unpacking my things in the guest room that would now be my room. "Can I come in?" Of course. He sat on the edge of the bed, picking at a loose thread on his jeans. "Do you think they ever loved us? Like, really loved us? Or were we always just money to them?" It was the question I'd been asking myself all day. All night. Since the moment Grandpa revealed the truth. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I want to believe they loved us in their own messed up way. But I don't know if that's true or if I'm just making excuses for them." "Yeah," he said quietly. "Yeah, me too." We sat in silence for a while. Then Tyler said, "I'm glad you're fighting back. I'm glad you're not letting them get away with it. Someone needs to stop them. I'm doing it for both of us." I told him, "I'm doing it so you still have something left when you turn 18? I'm doing it so they can't hurt anyone else." He nodded. "Thank you." After he left, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow I'd talk to the detective. Tomorrow the investigation would really begin. Tomorrow I'd start the process of tearing apart my parents' lies piece by piece. It felt overwhelming. It felt necessary. It felt like the only path forward. I thought about the life I could have had, Penn State. A real college experience. Money for books and housing and food. No exhaustion from working 2 jobs. No shame about secondhand clothes. No guilt about asking for help. My parents stole that life from me. They stole my past. But they wouldn't steal my future. I wouldn't let them. Detective Lisa Brennan had an office that smelled like coffee and old paper. She was in her mid-40s with short blonde hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to see right through people. When Bernard and I walked in, she shook my hand firmly and gestured to the chairs across from her desk. "Christal, I've reviewed the evidence Mr. Walsh provided. I've been working financial crimes for 12 years, and I have to tell you, this is one of the most extensive cases of family financial abuse I've seen. Your parents were systematic and deliberate. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned." Hearing it stated so plainly made it real in a new way. Planned. They planned to steal from me. They woke up every day and chose to continue the lie. "I want to pursue this fully," I said. "Whatever it takes." "Good. I need to warn you though, cases like this can be emotionally difficult. Your parents will likely hire attorneys who'll try to paint you as vindictive or ungrateful. They'll try to shift blame. They'll play the victim. Can you handle that?" I thought about 18 years of ramen noodles and thrift store clothes. I thought about giving up Penn State. I thought about Tyler's trust fund being drained. "Yes. I can handle it." Lisa nodded approvingly. "Then let's get started." Over the next several hours, I gave my statement. I described my childhood in detail. Every sacrifice, every struggle, every time I felt guilty for wanting more. Lisa recorded everything. She asked clarifying questions. She took notes. Bernard sat beside me the whole time, occasionally interjecting with legal points. When we finished, Lisa leaned back in her chair. "I'm going to subpoena your parents' complete financial records, bank accounts, credit cards, property deeds, everything. I want to see exactly where every penny went. Mr. Walsh has given me the trust fund statements, but I need the full picture." "How long will that take?" Bernard asked. "A few weeks, maybe. I'll also be referring this to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. Given the amount stolen and the sophistication of the fraud, I'm confident they'll pursue charges. Criminal charges. My parents would be arrested." The thought still felt surreal. Over the following weeks, I tried to build some kind of normal routine. I registered for spring semester classes at the Community College of Allegheny County. Though now I could afford to quit my jobs. Bernard advised me to keep working at least part-time to show I wasn't living extravagantly off the trust fund. Perception mattered, especially if this went to trial. So I kept my weekend job at the grocery store and quit the sandwich shop. I had time to study, time to sleep, time to think. It felt strange and uncomfortable, like wearing someone else's clothes. Tyler settled into life at Grandpa's house. He transferred to the local high school. It was a better school than the one in our old neighborhood, with more resources and smaller classes. He seemed lighter somehow, despite everything, like a weight had been lifted. One evening in late October, about 6 weeks after my birthday, Lisa called. "I've got the subpoenaed records. Can you come in tomorrow? I want to show you what I found." The next day, Bernard and I sat in Lisa's office again. She had boxes of documents, printouts, and highlighted statements spread across her desk and a folding table shed set up. "Your parents withdrew a total of $5,800,000 from your trust fund over 18 years, Lisa began. Combined with poor timing on some of their withdrawals, the investment losses compounded. That's how a $5 million fund that should have grown to $7 million ended up at $1,200,000. The numbers were staggering. Almost $6 million. Gone." Lisa pulled out specific statements. "Here's what they spent it on. $340,000 on the lake house. Another $180,000 on renovations and furnishings for that property. $68,000 on a boat. $215,000 on vehicles over the years. $190,000 on vacations, cruises, hotels. $412,000 on retail purchases, restaurants, entertainment. $56,000 on country club memberships and golf outings." She kept going. Every category of spending was documented. Every lie was exposed in black and white. "But here's where it gets interesting," Lisa said, her expression darkening. "About 3 years ago, your father quit his job. Since then, they've been living entirely off trust fund withdrawals. Your mother works part-time, maybe 15 hours a week, earning around $12,000 a year. They have no retirement savings, no emergency fund, nothing. They were going to drain it completely," I said. "They were going to take everything and leave me with nothing. That appears to be the plan, yes. And there's something else." Lisa pulled out more documents. "I found evidence of gambling. Lots of gambling. Your parents have been frequenting casinos in Atlantic City for the past 2 years. I have ATM withdrawals, credit card charges at casinos, hotel stays. They've lost approximately $240,000 gambling in just the past 8 months. Gambling. They were addicts. They'd stolen my future to feed an addiction." Bernard spoke up. "Does this change the legal strategy?" "It strengthens our case," Lisa said. "It shows they weren't just making poor decisions. They were spiraling. The gambling suggests compulsion, loss of control. It explains why they tried to forge Christal's signature to access the remaining funds. They were desperate. Desperate. My parents were desperate because they'd blown through millions of dollars and needed more. They were like addicts chasing a high, and I was their drug." "What happens now?" I asked. "I'm presenting this to the district attorney next week. I'm recommending multiple felony charges: embezzlement, fraud, identity theft for the credit cards, and forgery for the attempted trust fund dissolution. Given the amount stolen and the duration of the crime, your parents are looking at significant prison time if convicted." Prison time. My parents in prison. I tried to imagine it, and couldn't. Then I thought about Tyler's face when he told me about his trust fund being drained. I thought about my own face in the mirror when I was 16. Exhausted from working 2 jobs, wondering if I'd ever escape the cycle of poverty my parents said we were trapped in. A poverty that never existed. "Do it," I said. "File everything. I want them held accountable." That night, I met with a woman named Paula Rodriguez. She was a victim's advocate who specialized in financial abuse cases. Bernard had connected us, thinking I might need emotional support through the legal process. Paula's office was warm and comfortable, with soft lighting and plants everywhere. She was in her 50s with kind eyes and a calm presence. "Tell me how you're feeling," she said after I sat down. "Angry, sad, betrayed, guilty, confused, everything all at once." "The guilt is common," Paula said gently. Victims of family financial abuse often feel guilty for pursuing legal action. You're programmed to protect your parents, to maintain family unity. Going against that programming feels wrong, even when you know intellectually that you're the victim. Exactly. Part of me keeps thinking I should just let it go. They're still my parents. They raised me. Maybe I'm being vindictive. Maybe I'm tearing apart the family for nothing. You're not tearing apart the family, Christal. They did that when they chose to steal from you for 18 years. You're simply holding them accountable for their choices. There's a difference. We talked for an hour. Paula explained that financial abuse often goes hand in hand with emotional manipulation. She said abusers frequently convince their victims that the abuse is normal, justified, or the victim's fault. She said recovery takes time and it's not linear. Some days would be harder than others. When I left her office, I felt a little less alone. There were people who understood, people who believed me, people who saw this for what it was: abuse. A few days later, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Christal? It's Aunt Margaret. Aunt Margaret was Grandpa Henry's younger sister. She was 78, lived in Florida, and I'd only met her a handful of times at family reunions. Oh. Hi. Aunt Margaret. How are you? I'm fine, honey. But I'm calling about you. Henry told me what happened. I'm so sorry. I want you to know I support you completely. Thank you. That means a lot. I also want you to know something about your father. Something you should probably hear. She paused. David has always had entitlement issues, even as a boy. He thought the world owed him something. He was jealous of other kids who had more. He shoplifted a few times as a teenager. Henry and your grandmother dealt with it quietly, made him return the items, thought he'd grow out of it. But he never did. He just got better at hiding it. This was news to me. Grandpa never mentioned that. He wouldn't. He's ashamed. He blames himself. But I want you to know that this pattern, this stealing, it's not new. It's who David is. Who he's always been. You didn't cause this. Your existence didn't trigger this. He would have found a way to take what wasn't his, no matter what. After we hung up, I sat with that information. My father was a thief before I was born. I was just his most convenient target. The trust fund was too tempting, too accessible. He saw money with my name on it and decided it should be his instead. The anger came back, hot and justified. I wasn't destroying my family by pursuing this. My father had been destroying things long before I came along. I was just finally shining a light on it. 6 months after my 18th birthday, the criminal trial began. The courthouse was a grand old building downtown, with marble floors and high ceilings. I'd never been inside a courtroom before. It felt like stepping into a television show. Except everything was real, and the consequences would change lives forever. The prosecutor was Andrew Hutchinson, a sharp man in his early 40s with dark hair going gray at the temples. He'd met with me several times to prepare my testimony. He told me to stay calm, answer only what was asked, and tell the truth. The truth was powerful enough on its own. My parents sat at the defense table with their attorney, Gregory Stone. Stone was expensive, which was ironic considering my parents claimed to have no money. Later I learned they'd borrowed from Dad's sister, my Aunt Diane, who believed they were innocent victims of a misunderstanding. Stone wore expensive suits and had a way of speaking that made everything sound reasonable, even lies. The courtroom filled with people. Grandpa Henry sat behind me in the gallery. Tyler was there too, though he looked uncomfortable in his dress shirt and tie. Detective Lisa Brennan sat with the prosecution team. Bernard was there as my civil attorney, watching everything carefully. The jury was selected over 2 days. 12 people who would decide my parents' fate. They looked ordinary. A teacher, a retired postal worker, a nurse, a construction worker, an accountant, regular people who were about to hear an extraordinary story. Opening statements began on a cold Monday morning in March. Andrew Hutchinson stood and addressed the jury with quiet confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about betrayal at its most fundamental level. A parent's betrayal of their child. David and Susan Harper were entrusted with $5 million meant to provide for their daughter's future. Instead, they stole it. They spent it on themselves. They lived in luxury while their daughter worked minimum wage jobs and ate ramen noodles. They lied to her face every single day for 18 years. The evidence will show systematic, deliberate theft. And when they were close to getting caught, they attempted to forge their daughter's signature to take the last of her money. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is criminal betrayal. Gregory Stone countered with a different narrative. My clients made mistakes, yes. But mistakes aren't crimes. David and Susan Harper are good people who got overwhelmed managing a complex trust. They borrowed from the trust with every intention of paying it back. They believed, perhaps incorrectly, that as parents they were entitled to some compensation for the enormous costs of raising children. They're not criminals. They're parents who made some poor financial decisions. The prosecution wants to destroy a family over what amounts to a civil matter. Don't let them. The prosecution presented its case over 3 weeks. Bank statements, trust documents, expert testimony from financial analysts. Every withdrawal was documented. Every lie was exposed. The evidence was overwhelming. Lisa Brennan testified about her investigation. She explained how Shed tracked the money, identified the gambling losses, discovered the credit card fraud. Her testimony was methodical and damning. Bernard testified about discovering the forged signature attempt. He brought examples of my real signature and the forged documents. An expert handwriting analyst confirmed the forgery. Then it was my turn. I walked to the witness stand on shaky legs. The bailiff swore me in. I promised to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That was all I'd ever wanted to do. Andrew Hutchinson guided me through my testimony. I described my childhood, the apartment, the thrift store clothes, working 2 jobs, eating cheap food, giving up Penn State. I kept my voice steady. I didn't cry, though I wanted to. I just told my story as clearly and honestly as I could. Did you know about the trust fund? Andrew asked. No. I had no idea it existed until my 18th birthday. If you had known, would you have lived differently? Yes, I would have gone to a better college. I wouldn't have worked myself to exhaustion. I would have eaten actual, nutritious food. I would have had a childhood that didn't revolve around financial stress. And how did you feel when you learned the truth? Betrayed, heartbroken, angry, like everything I thought I knew was a lie. Gregory Stone cross-examined me. He tried to make me seem vindictive or money-hungry. He asked if I loved my parents. I said I'd loved the people I thought they were. But those people didn't really exist. He asked if I'd had a roof over my head and food to eat. I said yes, but that didn't give them the right to steal millions of dollars. He asked if I was enjoying the attention from the trial. I said I'd give anything for none of this to have happened. His questions didn't shake me. The truth was on my side. Tyler testified briefly. He confirmed our shared childhood experience. He talked about his trust fund being drained without his knowledge. His testimony was short but powerful. Grandpa Henry testified with tears in his eyes. He talked about establishing the trusts, trusting his son, and feeling betrayed. His voice broke when he described how Head believed David was raising us with good values, only to discover it was all lies. The defense tried to argue that David and Susan had implied permission, that the trust documents were ambiguous, that this was a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. But then the prosecution presented the emails. Bernard had found them buried in David's old computer files. Emails between David and Susan from 8 years ago, discussing how they were breaking the law but didn't care as long as no one found out. Susan's email said, "I know we shouldn't be doing this, but it feels so good to finally live well. I'm tired of pretending to struggle." David's response was, "As long as Christal never finds out, we're fine. Well, just take what we need and she'll still have plenty left by the time she's 25. And if she doesn't, well, deal with it then." The courtroom went silent as the emails were read aloud. There was no ambiguity, no misunderstanding, just cold, calculated theft, spelled out in their own words. My mother started crying at the defense table. My father's jaw clenched. There was no explaining away those emails. The defense called character witnesses. Aunt Diane testified that David and Susan were good parents who'd made mistakes. A neighbor said they seemed like a nice family. Dad's former boss said David had been a reliable employee. None of it addressed the actual crime. David and Susan both took the stand in their own defense. It was a calculated risk. Gregory Stone must have thought their remorse would sway the jury. Susan cried through her entire testimony. She apologized repeatedly. She said she was ashamed. She said she'd made terrible choices but never stopped loving us. She said she was willing to spend the rest of her life making it up to us. If you could go back, what would you do differently? Gregory Stone asked her. Everything, Susan sobbed. I would do everything differently. I would be honest. I would use the money the way it was intended. I would give my children the life they deserved. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. On cross-examination, Andrew Hutchinson was less sympathetic. You said you'd do everything differently. But you had 18 years to make different choices. You made the same choice every single day. To lie, to steal, to prioritize your comfort over your daughter's future. Those weren't mistakes. Those were choices. Susan had no answer for that. David was less apologetic. He admitted Head used the trust fund inappropriately, but he maintained Head planned to pay it back eventually. He said raising children was expensive and Head felt entitled to some compensation. He said Head given us a good home and taught us good values, which were worth more than money. Andrew Hutchinson dismantled his testimony piece by piece. You taught your daughter good values while simultaneously stealing from her? You gave her a good home while secretly living in luxury at her expense? You planned to pay her back while gambling away hundreds of thousands of dollars in Atlantic City? Mr. Harper, those statements are contradictory at best and delusional at worst. David's face turned red. I did the best I could. Did you? Because the evidence shows you did exactly what served your interests, regardless of the harm to your daughter. That's not the best you could do. That's the worst. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they returned, the courtroom was packed. Media had picked up the story. Local news crews were outside. The case had resonated with people. Family financial abuse was more common than anyone realized, and my story had given voice to thousands of silent victims. The jury foreman stood. The judge asked for the verdict. On the charge of embezzlement, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of fraud, guilty. On the charge of identity theft, guilty. On the charge of forgery, guilty. Every charge came back guilty. My mother collapsed into her attorney's arms, sobbing. My father stared straight ahead, his face expressionless. Behind me, Grandpa Henry let out a breath he'd been holding. Tyler squeezed my hand. I felt tears on my face, but I wasn't sure if they were from relief or grief or some combination of both. Justice had been served. But it didn't feel triumphant. It felt sad and necessary and final. Sentencing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. In the meantime, life took on a surreal quality. The trial had made national news. It'd become the face of family financial abuse. Interview requests flooded in. A victims' rights organization called me. A book agent reached out. It was overwhelming. Bernard and Paula helped me navigate it all. We agreed to one interview with a local news station and declined everything else. I wasn't ready for national attention. I just wanted to move forward. With the guilty verdict secured, Bernard moved forward aggressively with the civil lawsuit. The judge ordered David and Susan to repay everything they'd stolen, plus interest and legal fees. The total came to $6,300,000. They didn't have it. They'd never have it. But the judgment meant their wages would be garnished for life. Their assets would be seized. The lake house would be sold. The fancy cars would be taken. They'd be paying me back in tiny increments until they died. It felt like justice, but it also felt hollow. Money couldn't give me back the childhood I'd lost. It couldn't erase the betrayal. It couldn't rebuild trust that was shattered. I enrolled at Penn State for the spring semester. It deferred my acceptance after my birthday disaster, but they'd welcomed me back. I was starting 3 years late, but I found an apartment near campus, nothing fancy, just a small 1-bedroom that was clean and quiet. I wanted independence. I wanted space to figure out who I was without the lies. Tyler stayed with Grandpa Henry. He was doing well in school. His art was improving. Head started seeing a therapist to work through the trauma of everything that happened. He was going to be okay. We both were. Eventually, 2 days before sentencing, my phone rang at 2 in the morning. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer. Is this Christal Harper? A woman's voice, professional, but urgent. Yes. Who is this? This is Dr. Emily Chen from Allegheny General Hospital. Your mother, Susan Harper, was brought in by ambulance about an hour ago. She attempted suicide. She's stable now, but she's asking for you. The world tilted. Suicide. My mother tried to kill herself. Despite everything, despite all the anger and betrayal, I felt fear grip my chest. Is she going to be okay? Physically, yes. She took an overdose of sleeping pills, but her husband found her in time. We pumped her stomach. She'll recover, but she left a note. The police have it, but she's been asking for you since she woke up. I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to process. I'll be there in an hour. I drove to the hospital in a daze. It was 3 in the morning. The roads were empty. The city was dark and quiet. I kept thinking about my mother, about how desperate she must have felt to do this. I kept thinking about the note. What did it say? Was it a manipulation, a genuine cry for help, both? At the hospital, a nurse directed me to the psychiatric unit. Susan was in a room with security outside. She looked small in the hospital bed, pale and fragile, IVs in her arms, monitors beeping softly. When she saw me, fresh tears started. Christal, you came. I stood in the doorway, not sure if I should enter. The hospital called. They said you asked for me. I did. I needed to see you. To tell you. I'm sorry, face to face, not through lawyers or in a courtroom. Just you and me. I walked slowly into the room and sat in the chair by her bed. We stared at each other for a long moment. She looked older than I remembered. Tired. Broken. Why did you do it? I asked. Why did you try to kill yourself? Because I can't face what's coming. Prison. Losing everything. But mostly because of what I did to you. To Tyler. I destroyed my own children for money. What kind of mother does that? I can't live with it. I can't look at myself. So you thought leaving Tyler completely alone was the answer? You thought making him deal with your death on top of everything else was better? She flinched. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just wanted the pain to stop. Well, it doesn't stop. You don't get to escape this. You have to live with what you did. Just like I have to live with what you did to me. I know. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't even know why I asked you to come. Maybe I just needed to see you one more time before everything falls apart completely. I looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman who'd raised me, who'd made me lunches and helped with homework and hugged me when I was scared. This woman who'd also stolen my future and lied to my face every day. She was both people at once, monster and mother. How could someone be both? I'm not ready to forgive you, I said quietly. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. What you and Dad did, it's not something you just get over. It changed who I am. It changed how I see the world. That's not fixable with apologies. I understand. But I don't want you to die. As angry as I am, as much as I hate what you did, I don't want you dead. Tyler doesn't either. Hez already lost enough. Susan closed her eyes. More tears slipped down her cheeks. I'm going to prison. I'm going to lose years of my life. I deserve it. I know I deserve it. But I'm so scared. You should be scared. You should face what you did. That's the only way forward. Will you ever visit me? In prison? Or am I dead to you? The question hung in the air. I didn't have an answer. I don't know. Maybe someday. But not now. Now I need to focus on healing and building my own life. The life you stole from me. She nodded. That's fair. That's more than fair. I stood to leave. At the door I turned back. Mom, get help. Real help. For the gambling. For whatever made you think stealing from your own kids was okay. Get therapy. Work on yourself. Not for me, but for you. Because the person you are right now, that person isn't worth saving. But maybe somewhere inside you, there's a better person. Find her. I left before she could respond. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall and took shaky breaths. I'd just seen my mother in a hospital bed after a suicide attempt, and I didn't know what I felt. Sad. Angry. Relieved she was alive. Frustrated that she'd tried this manipulation, if that's what it was. Exhausted by all of it. I called Grandpa Henry from the parking lot. I told him what happened. He sighed heavily. David called me too. Hez at the hospital with her. He says Hez devastated, that he should have seen the signs. Hez probably worried about how this looks for sentencing. Probably. But maybe some part of him does care. I don't know anymore. I don't know my own son anymore. None of us do. That's the problem. We loved people who didn't really exist. 3 days later, we were back in court for sentencing. Susan was there, released from the hospital but still fragile-looking. David sat beside her. They both wore simple, dark clothes, no fancy suits. Their attorneys had probably told them to look humble. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Morrison, reviewed the case thoroughly before pronouncing sentence. She addressed David and Susan directly. You were entrusted with a sacred responsibility. To care for your child, to protect her interests, to ensure her future. Instead, you betrayed that trust in the most profound way. You stole from your own daughter for 18 years. You lied to her face while living in luxury at her expense. You taught her to accept poverty while you enjoyed wealth. And when you were close to being caught, you attempted to forge her signature to take the last of her money. Your crimes were calculated, sustained, and utterly without remorse until you faced consequences. Mrs. Harper, I'm aware of your recent suicide attempt. I've read the psychiatric evaluation. While I have sympathy for your mental health struggles, they don't excuse your crimes. You're going to have time to get the help you need. Mr. Harper, you show less remorse than your wife, which concerns me greatly. She paused, looking at them both. David Harper, you are sentenced to 4 years in federal prison followed by 5 years probation. Susan Harper, you are sentenced to 3 years in federal prison followed by 5 years probation. You'll both serve your time in minimum security facilities. After release, your wages will be garnished to pay restitution. You'll have no contact with the victim unless she initiates it. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. 4 years and 3 years. It felt simultaneously too long and not long enough. My parents were led away in handcuffs. I watched them go. Susan looked back once, her eyes meeting mine. I didn't look away. I wanted her to see that I'd survived. That she hadn't broken me. That I was going to be okay. Outside the courthouse, media crews swarmed. I made a brief statement Bernard had helped me prepare. Justice has been served today. My parents betrayed my trust and stole my future. They'll face the consequences of their choices. I hope my story helps other victims of family financial abuse find the courage to speak up. Thank you. I didn't take questions. I just walked to Grandpa's car and we drove away. That night, I sat in my apartment in State College, Pennsylvania, my new home near Penn State's campus. Tyler had come to visit for the weekend. We ordered pizza and watched a movie, something mindless and funny. For a little while, we were just a brother and sister hanging out. Not victims, not headlines, just two young people trying to figure out life. How do you feel? Tyler asked during a commercial break. Now that it's over, weird, sad, relieved, empty. Like I've been holding my breath for months and I can finally exhale but am not sure what comes next. Yeah, I get that. How about you? How are you doing? Better than I thought I would be. Therapy helps, Grandpa helps. You help. I think I'm going to be okay. Me too. Eventually. We finished the movie. Tyler fell asleep on my couch. I covered him with a blanket and went to my bedroom. I looked out the window at the campus lights in the distance. Tomorrow I'd go to class. Next week I'd study for midterms. Next month I'd think about summer plans. Normal college student things. The life I should have been living all along. My parents had stolen a lot from me. But they hadn't stolen everything. I was still here. I was still fighting. I was still building a future. And that, I realized, was its own form of victory. A year passed. 12 months that felt like both a lifetime and a blink. I finished my first year at Penn State with a 3.7 grade point average. I'd declared a major in psychology with a minor in social work. I wanted to understand families, dysfunction, trauma. I wanted to help people who'd been through what I'd been through. My apartment near campus had become a real home. I'd decorated it with secondhand furniture and plants I tried not to kill. I had friends. Good ones who knew my story and didn't define me by it. I joined a support group for financial abuse survivors. Sharing my experience and hearing others helped more than I'd expected. Tyler was thriving. He was a junior in high school now, taking AP art classes and thinking about colleges. He wanted to study graphic design. His portfolio was impressive. Grandpa Henry's house had become covered in Tyler's artwork. The kid had real talent. Grandpa himself was doing better too. The betrayal had aged him, but had found purpose in supporting Tyler and me. He established new safeguards on Tyler's trust fund with an independent bank trustee. Head also started volunteering with a financial literacy program, teaching young people about money management and protecting themselves from fraud, turning his pain into something productive. Bernard handled all my financial matters with meticulous care. The trust fund was restructured with proper oversight. Every transaction was documented. I received quarterly statements showing exactly where every penny went. Mostly it just sat there, growing through conservative investments. I lived modestly off my work-study job and the small monthly allowance Bernard had helped me set up. I'd have full control at 25. But honestly, I didn't think about the money much anymore. It was just numbers in an account. It couldn't give me back what I'd lost. The lake house had been sold. The proceeds went toward the restitution judgment. David and Susan's cars were seized and sold. Their wages from prison jobs, pennies really, were garnished. They'd be paying me back in tiny increments for the rest of their lives. The total amount I'd eventually recover would be maybe $1 million, $2 million over decades. A fraction of what they stole. But it wasn't really about the money anymore. I'd received one letter from Susan after she'd been in prison for about 4 months. She wrote about the therapy she was attending, the Gamblers Anonymous meetings, the slow, painful work of understanding why she'd made such destructive choices. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't ask for anything, really. She just wanted me to know she was trying to become someone better. Someone who might someday deserve a relationship with her children again. I'd kept the letter but hadn't responded. I wasn't ready. Maybe I'd never be ready. That was okay. Healing didn't require forgiveness. It required honesty and self-care and time. David had never written. I'd heard through Grandpa that he was in prison, doing his time, but not really engaging with therapy or taking responsibility. Some people never change. I'd made peace with that. On a warm Saturday morning in late April, I sat in a coffee shop near campus, studying for finals. The place smelled like espresso and cinnamon. Students filled the tables. Everyone stressed about exams. I was stressed too, but in a normal way. A manageable way. My phone buzzed. A text from Paula, the victim's advocate who'd become something of a mentor and friend. There's a woman who reached out through the crisis line. She's going through something similar to what you experienced. Would you be willing to talk to her? No pressure. I stared at the message. A year ago, I would have said no immediately. I was barely holding myself together. But now I was stronger. Now I understood my story could help others. I typed back, yes, give her my email. I'm happy to talk. Over the next few weeks, I exchanged emails with the woman, Sarah. She was 30 years old and had just discovered her parents had stolen her inheritance from her late grandmother. $80,000, gone. She was devastated, ashamed, unsure if she should press charges. I told her my story. I told her it wasn't her fault. I told her that pursuing justice didn't make her a bad person. I told her she deserved better. She ended up filing charges. She thanked me for giving her courage. That's when I realized my pain had purpose. My story mattered, not just for me but for everyone else who'd been silenced by shame and family loyalty. The victims' rights organization reached out again, asking if I'd speak at their annual conference. This time, I said yes. I spoke to a room of 200 people about family financial abuse, about betrayal and healing and justice, about how recovery is possible even when it feels impossible. The standing ovation afterward brought tears to my eyes. Dozens of people waited to thank me, to share their stories, to tell me I'd given voice to their pain. I'd never felt more purposeful in my life. In June, I received an unexpected letter forwarded from Grandpa's address. My old address. The return label said it was from Susan. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Inside was a short note and a drawing. The drawing was Tyler's work. I recognized his style. It showed a sunrise over mountains, beautiful and hopeful. The note from Susan was brief. Christal, Tyler sent this to me. He said I should send it to you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to see that something beautiful can still come from our broken family. Tyler is thriving because you protected him. You saved your brother when I failed him. Thank you for being the parent I should have been. Love, Mom. I cried over that note, not because it changed anything. Not because I was ready to reconcile, but because it was honest. It was real. It acknowledged the truth. And maybe, someday, that honesty could be a foundation for something new. Not what we had before, but something different, something real. By the time my second year at Penn State started, I'd found my rhythm. Classes, work, study, job, volunteer work with the financial abuse support group, time with friends, weekly calls with Tyler and Grandpa. My life was full and purposeful. One October evening, I walked across campus after my intro to social work class. The leaves were changing colors, brilliant reds and oranges and yellows. The air was crisp and cool. Students rushed past, laughing and talking. I was wearing jeans and a Penn State sweatshirt I'd bought with money from my work-study job. I still worked even though I didn't need to financially. Working kept me grounded. It reminded me of where I came from and how far I'd traveled. As I walked, I thought about everything that had happened. The birthday dinner that shattered my world. The investigation and trial. My parents going to prison. The slow, painful work of rebuilding. All of it had led me here. To this moment. To this life. My parents had stolen $5 million from me. They'd stolen my childhood. My innocence. My trust. They'd stolen years that I could never get back. But you know what they couldn't steal? They couldn't steal my character. They couldn't steal my resilience. They couldn't steal my ability to choose who I wanted to become. The trust fund was meant to give me a secure start in life. Financial stability, educational opportunities, a safety net. Instead, its theft gave me something different. Something unexpected. It gave me strength I didn't know I had. It gave me clarity about what really matters. It gave me an unshakable understanding of who I am and what I value. I learned that you can't control what others do to you. Parents, friends, partners, anyone can betray you, but you can control how you respond. You can choose to crumble, or you can choose to fight. You can choose bitterness, or you can choose healing. You can let betrayal define you, or you can let your response to betrayal define you. I chose to fight. I chose justice. I chose healing. And in making those choices, I discovered who I really am. Not the girl my parents tried to keep small and struggling. Not a victim defined by what was done to her, but a woman who knows her worth, who stands up for herself, who uses her pain to help others. Real wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in integrity. In relationships built on truth, in the courage to rebuild after devastating loss, in knowing that you can survive the worst betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. I don't know if I'll ever fully reconcile with my parents. Maybe after they're released from prison. Well, find some kind of relationship. Maybe not. But I know I'll be okay either way. I'm building a life defined by my choices, not their betrayal. I'm creating my own future. One that no one can steal from me because it's built on who I am, not what I have. Tyler is going to be okay too. Has got his trust fund protected now, and more importantly, has got support and honesty and a chance to become whoever he wants to be. We're both going to make it. We're going to thrive, and maybe that's the greatest revenge, if you can call it that. Not destroying them, but building ourselves up so high that what they did to us becomes just one chapter in a much longer story. A painful chapter, yes, but not the whole story. Not even close. As I reached my apartment that evening, the sun setting behind the campus buildings, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the absence of pain, because the pain was still there. It probably always would be. But peace with the path I'd chosen. Peace with the person I was becoming. Peace with the fact that survival, healing, and justice were all possible, even when it seemed impossible. My name is Christal. My parents stole $5 million from me. They stole my childhood. They stole years I'll never get back. But they couldn't steal my future. That belongs to me now. And I'm going to make it extraordinary. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and justice? What would you do in my situation? Would you press charges against your own parents, or would you try to forgive and move on? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, if it helped you feel less alone or gave you courage to face your own battles, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes knowing that someone else survived the impossible makes your own impossible situation feel a little more bearable. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for witnessing my pain and my healing. Thank you for being part of this journey. I wish you courage in your own battles, whatever they may be. I wish you the strength to choose yourself, even when it's hard. I wish you healing, peace, and the knowledge that you're stronger than you know. Take care of yourselves. You're worth fighting for.